college football has a lot of big giants that everybody knows about, from Texas to Georgia to Alabama. Ohio State and Oregon are just some examples that we think about first, and these teams have had it figured out for a long time, but not everyone is on the same page. Today, we'll look at what teams have a chance to jump into more of the national conversation as a playoff or national championship contender within the next decade. First to me is Sacramento State. Look, they just received a massive NIL endowment, kind of the popular team in the mix in terms of the recent conversation, but you still got a good location in California, and there's a lot of good players out there you can always recruit. Plus, it's an easy situation, I think, now to jump to the next level. If you actually have that NIL endowment, you can maybe jump into one of the group of 5 teams that's been seeing conference realignment, or even the newer Pac-12, whichever it is. You've got a potential jump there, maybe even the Big 12, but there's a lot of different options for you to move up to the FBS. And also, you have to consider that with Sacramento State, a lot of the other California schools recently haven't really been dominating, so you're going to be a good program quickly if you have good money and backing, and that can turn things around rather quickly there at Sac State. Next up to me is Oregon State in the Pacific Northwest. This team can really take advantage probably of the smaller Pac-12, or even moving into some other conferences that just aren't maybe the SEC or Big Ten, but there's a huge NIL potential if Jensen Huang, the NVIDIA founder, donates more to try and flip the athletic program. He could basically bring in anybody in the country, and there's talks that he's already donated to Oregon State in the past, but if he looks at this and wants this program to get to the next level seriously, I'm sure he could just write a blank check and start turning things around for the Beavers athletics and really help this football program out and buying some good players. There's a nice size stadium as well on campus that can at least compete with Oregon and Autzen Stadium. Plus, this team has already had decent success in contending for stuff like Pac-12 championships and everything recently, and that's without all that extra funding and whatnot that I've talked about. So I think Oregon State's in a really good spot if they wanted to make kind of a jump to the next level. UCLA is right in the big city of Los Angeles, and it kind of doesn't make sense they don't do a little bit better, but USC, your neighbor across town, is still trying to figure it out. You do have a new coach in here at UCLA, so you should be able to get some momentum. With that being said, you also play in a big Rose Bowl that demands to be filled up, though it has not been in recent years. There's so much history behind that stadium, and you're in a Big Ten that is quite powerful, but with the expansion of the college football playoff, it gives you more of a chance to be in a big division, or a big conference, I should say, and still have a chance to go to the next level because you can make the playoff. You don't have to be the one team that actually makes it out of the sledgehammer of the conference and still gets in. It can contend for the national title. We just saw that happen with Ohio State. They take the end of the year loss to Michigan. They still advance to the playoffs. So you got a great quarterback situation here with Nico Iamaleava now joining town. So I think the Bruins are really shaping up to potentially be a player down the line. Georgia Tech has actually had a lot of great teams in the past, kind of a forgotten gem in college football. And there's a big city here. You're right in the heart of Atlanta, which is a southern hub down there in the big state of Georgia. You also have pretty rich alumni here, and it's kind of a smart school. And there's also a good recruiting base here in the state of Georgia. Plenty of great players that come from this side of town and this side of the states. You can maybe steal some Florida guys too if you get the right staff in here at Georgia Tech, and basically be able to recruit a few extra great players. And you're in an ACC, which is not necessarily the strongest of the Power 4 conferences in recent years. So Georgia Tech, if they can get things rolling, maybe get some NIL funds in there, get some little hype behind the program, the right coaching staff, there's no reason the Yellow Jackets can't take off there in a really big hub city. And we're back out west at Nebraska. A good quarterback situation in Nebraska with Dylan Raiola is just going into his second year. He seems pretty locked into to develop at that program under Matt Rule, who is a competent head coach, which is another piece to the puzzle. Somebody that at least you have to say he probably knows what he's doing at this point. Been in the NFL, been at Baylor and had good success there. Even if you're a Nebraska fan and maybe not liking all the moves, he is not lost. I would say this program's also very proud. You've got good fan base here. They've definitely loved to fill the stadium and watch the football on Saturdays. They've had past success, and you're also in a Big Ten, which again is a tough conference to deal with, but with the expansion of the playoff, that's made it easier for teams who won't finish in their conference to play meaningful games and get a second chance. And if you can turn this the right way with your quarterback situation, especially get in some good receivers that typically cost some NIL dollars to this place, is almost maybe a second kind of dream spot to go outside of like Ohio State of developing receivers. If you have a great quarterback, that can maybe really help turn the tide, lead this thing with offense, and lead you to the next level as Nebraska. And our last school here, at least in my top few, Auburn. Great recruiting classes right now at Auburn. Your main rival, Alabama, in the state is kind of down at the moment. I'm not going to say necessarily down in terms of they can't win anything, but not certainly the dominant level they were with Nick Saban. Plus, you play in a tough SEC conference, but as we mentioned earlier, the expansion of the playoff has made it easier not to be Nick Saban's Alabama and still be okay as far as the national championship contention. Plus, you know, this team has been around a few years in the SEC. They do have some big boosters and funders like everybody else in the SEC, and it just seems like there's a lot of competence behind this program, and they're in a spot where they've won a national championship in the past, which is kind of proof to me that with the right mix of everything at a good time, they can excel, and we've already actually seen that. If you look at a team maybe similar to Auburn that I like to think about, LSU, seems like they have great athletics, a lot of funding behind that. They're great at some sports too, like baseball, and then every once in a while they put the pieces together in football and win a championship because they can still recruit at that level. They've got the NFL funds to bring in transfer guys and everything, so I just feel like it's a matter of time until Auburn does a similar thing like LSU in 2019, wins a natty or something along that line. So these teams haven't necessarily been in the spotlight in the last few years, but I can see all of them excelling in the near future if things go right. Drop some comments and a like down below if you have any thoughts. Feel free to subscribe if you like content like this. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next video.